year, I have not felt like our fan base has been locked in on basketball at any point during this year. I felt like everybody watched the Michigan State game and it kicked the air out of our lungs. Losing the way we did in overtime, unable to execute. And I then thought when it came to Gonzaga and Michigan, I didn't even really feel like our fan base was locked into watching those games. I get having done this a long time, I can feel when the fan base is engaged. They have been engaged in football for the last few years, pretty much every game. Basketball, the engagement's kind of been on and off. Last year, I thought we were really engaged for most of the year, but this year, it just hasn't felt that way until the UCLA game. In the UCLA game, for the first time since the Michigan State game, I felt like our fan base was locked in. They were watching it. The pregame, at KSR, we were full. Like it felt like people were engaged. And then you have what you have, which is another game where with 4.5 minutes to go, Kentucky has a chance to win, and they don't score again. They don't score in the last 4.5 minutes. And in so doing, everything we've complained about continues. Poor offensive execution, poor shot selection, and its seeming inability of Kentucky to even run the most basic offense. After the game, Cal sort of really didn't have anything to say. He kind of said, well, I thought we'd be better, and we tried this and we tried that. And the reality is we scored 53 points on national television in a primetime basketball game. And the standard of the last 3 years is just unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. When I saw the stat after the game that the last 17 times we've played ranked teams were 4-13, Shannon, that's unacceptable at Kentucky.
Can't do that.
It can't do that.
That's not Kentucky basketball.
That's not even close to Kentucky basketball. Like, if you're at Vanderbilt and you're 4-13 in your ranked games, you're disappointed.
Yeah.
This is Kentucky.
Yeah.
This is Kentucky. This is something that we keep being told is the gold standard that in the last few years has not been the gold standard. And John Calipari has to be the one responsible. I mean, we can point to the fact that C.J. Frederick and Antonio Reeves have not been shooting like we thought. And we can point to the fact that Cason Wallace couldn't make open shots. And we can point to the fact that Severe Wheeler is not able to finish. And we can point to all that. We can point to Oscar not having an Oscar game. But you know what? I'm kind of tired of doing that. Because last year, people could say, well, Davion Mintz is not as good as we need, and Kellen Grady got cold at the end of the year. And then you can go the year before, well, B.J. Boston's not what we thought he was going to be, and all this. And it's just put it on repeat. There's one common denominator. And the common denominator is our coach. And, it's a tough spot for us in talking about it, because I'm kind of tired of being told how negative I am about John Calipari. I feel like, historically, there's been almost no one that's been more positive about him than I am. But if people don't see there's been a change in the performance, I don't know what to tell them. And I think it has to come from the top. And he has to take responsibility. It has to be him. I can't hear any more about we haven't played together and we haven't, Oscar doesn't know the plays. And like Shannon, I can't listen to any of that anymore.
Yeah, fans are tired of it.
I just can't. I am tired of it. Somebody said to me before the UCLA game, Matt, it feels like you always mock what Cal said. Well, how do I not? It's always something, but here's the result. 4.5 minutes to go in the game against UCLA, we don't score. What am I supposed to do during that? I mean, how are you supposed to say something positive about it? And it feels like to me that this whole thing, which when Cal had it rolling was as good as it was anywhere in America, if not better. Because not only did we win, we were fun, we were putting people in the NBA. It felt like a rock concert every game because you never know who would show up. Shannon, it felt like we were the coolest team on earth.
And they
right?
were. They were at one time.
And we were.
But that has dropped off.
Do you feel cool at all during these games? No.
It feels like fans are to the point where they do not care.
These games are a slog. These games are a slog. Watching them is hard to do. You have to want it because at the end of it, it feels like there's been nothing entertaining. That's on the leadership. It has to be. And at some point, there has to be a moment of reflection for Cal. I mean, let's be real here for a second. When this was rolling, this city adored him. The city wants to still adore him. But he's making it impossible. Just look at the facts. He has no relationship with the athletic director. He has no relationship with us. He has no relationship with the football department. He has no relationship with the biggest donors at the school. And with the exception of Orlando, all the guys that were part of this when it was rolling, like, he's got to fix this stuff. And what's tough is I don't even see him trying to do it. I feel like I see him, Shannon, say over and over that there's nothing wrong.
Yep. We're going to get better.
That's what's crazy. I mean, he kept saying, like, our offensive efficiency is top 15. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's top 15, or it was, because they were still factoring in last year's numbers. We dropped from 16th to 28th in 2 hours Saturday. And go look at what our offensive efficiency is when we play good teams. We're in the hundreds. We're like 135th. This is broken. It is broken. Now, I don't think it's unfixable. I think it's fixable. You still have the defending National Player of the Year on your team. You still have Casey Wallace, who's a top 10 draft pick, and Chris Livingston, who's probably a first-round draft pick. You still got a lot of stuff. But it's broken. And you've got to admit that. You've got to admit that this is not what it's been. And it's on you to fix it. And you can blame everybody else all you want, but it's on you. You're the coach. And he's not going anywhere. So like the talk of we got to replace him, we're not going to replace him. We'd owe him $50 million. He's not going anywhere. So like he's got to want to fix it. And I need to hear from him saying, you know what? I've made some errors. It's time to make a change. But Shannon, I think what's hard is none of us expect him to say that.
No. We know Calipari. He's not going to change. He's stuck in his ways. It's a 2-year hangover for the fan base, and the frustration just builds with every loss. It's not it's not just every loss. This is an impossible team to watch. Yeah.
It's like they play in mud. I mean, there's a picture I saw, which I need to find to tweet out, that showed Oscar. He had the ball under the basket, Shannon, and 5 guys were around him with 4 people waiting outside, 2 of whom were standing right next to each other, so there was no space.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you watch it and go, that's our offense. It's non-existent.
You can sum up the entire game on that first play of the game. Kentucky wins the tip-off. They get the ball, go down, they look confused, dribble. The ball literally gets taken out of their hands. That was the entire game for me. That summed up the entire game for me right there.
I am to the point that literally and there are still people who will make excuses for Cal, and I mean, that's great. I'm glad he has loyalists. But at some point, if you blame the players the BJ Boston year, and you blame the players last year, and you're blaming the players this year, what are you really doing at some point? We're going to have new players next year. You're going to blame them too? Like, ultimately, it's on the leadership. And he's got to accept that. And the only way you ever make change is when you change your behavior. And I'm just waiting for Cal to acknowledge that something he's doing is not working. Because when you hear him talk, he acts like this is all perfect. And 4-13 in the last 17 games against ranked teams, not only is it not perfect, it's not acceptable. We'll open up the phones. 502-571-1080. Maybe you disagree with me. If you have a different opinion, that's fine. I'm going to let you talk. I've just asked people to make their points quickly because I want to hear from a bunch of people. It's just me and Shannon today. I'm frustrated. I'll acknowledge it. But I also think some things have to be said. And we got to stop acting like we can't say them. We'll be right back.
To talk to Matt Jones and the crew, call the Clark's Pump and Shop phone line at 502-571-1080 or 1-877-904-1080, or send us the Kentucky branded KSR tweet of the day by tweeting Matt at KY Sports Radio.
Welcome back, Kentucky Sports Radio, 502-571-1080. One person writes on the text machine, 772-774-5254. Matt, I agree with you, but he can't make these guys shoot any better, so what's he going to do? Well, first of all, I find it amazing, Shannon, that we bring in these dudes who are great shooters and they get here and can't shoot. Wonder why? Maybe because he makes these dudes scared to death.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there is a mental aspect going on with the shooting. There has to be.
Kellen Grady was one of the best shooters in the country. He came here and for periods of time couldn't shoot. For periods of time he could, to be fair.
Yeah.
CJ Frederick was the number one player in the United States in college basketball in three-point percentage, and he can't make a shot.
And now he's getting 6 minutes a game.
Why? Well, I think it might be because somebody's screaming at him over there all the time.
Yeah.
And because we don't work to get anyone an open look. And this gets to my biggest problem. Cal has this offense, which does not work in modern college basketball unless you've got a group of NBA stars. Next year, he's going to have them. That's why I think what might happen, Shannon, is we might be good next year because they'll get to play the offense that he likes to play. But what bothers me is if you're a coach, you've got to create an offense to who you have.
Right.
And the guys we have, Severe Wheeler, Frederick, Reeves, those are not dudes that are at their best trying to beat their man off the dribble. That's not what they're good at. So design an offense for them. We have one guy on this team that plays the way that Cal would like to play, and that's Wallace, maybe Livingston. But instead, we're trying to make these guys do things they cannot do. And it's just like watching paint dry.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
When you have a guy like John Wall, you can go out there and run the dribble drive or let him do his thing.
We don't
and he can
have
create.
that.
Exactly.
We don't have that. Now, we'll have it next year. So, like, next year they might be good. But you know what? This style, nobody else in the country is playing this style. Watch an NBA game. Anybody playing like this? No. That's one of the things Cal always talks about, getting guys ready for the NBA. The NBA does not play like this anymore. The NBA played like this 10 years ago. Now the NBA plays, spread it out, work to get guys open looks, give them space. We don't do that. So we are not preparing the guys for the NBA anymore. I don't know what we're playing most of the time.
Whatever it is, that's the frustrating. It's not just losing to UCLA that's frustrating. It's the 53 points.
53
You want to score 80 points a game, you're not even getting close to that.
We actually play pretty good defense, to be honest. We had a hard time with Jaquez, but we actually played pretty well against the other guys. Yeah. Defensively, this team is not bad, but we can't score on anybody. And that's the problem. One person writes, Matt, you say that Cal isn't talking to these people. Why do you think that's happened? I don't know, but I also think it has to be acknowledged. It just has to be acknowledged. Our coach has no relationship with the athletic director. None. Our coach has no relationship with the local media anymore. None. Our coach has no relationship with the biggest donors anymore. None.
That's a problem.
That's a problem.
I don't understand why that is. Why would that have changed?
Well, everybody can have their guesses.
Yeah.
But he's on an island. And that's not the way to be. And everything changed when there were three people who really could talk to Cal. There were three people who Cal respected. Kenny Payne, Dwayne Peavy, and John Robick. And for various reasons, we lost them all. John Robick was his X&O guy. Kenny Payne was the guy who helped him have a relationship with players so that when he got upset, Kenny would make it better. And Dwayne Peavy was the one who helped Cal understand our fan base and how to get along with the athletic department. And he lost all of that. And when he lost all of that, it has not been replaced. Orlando is there to help on the recruiting end. And so that's been decent. That's been pretty good. But everything else, those relationships, they're all gone.